is Hamlet and I'm the host of the How to Spark Success series. So welcome to my new episodes, and I'm delighted today to have a special guest all the way from Florence, Italy. So it's Bianca Pananti. So hi Bianca, how are you?
Hi Liz, very well, thank you.
Fantastic.
And you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. And today I've invited Bianca on because my How to Spark Success series is all about sharing the secrets and stealing some of those secrets of successful business people and people in different arenas. So before I introduce Bianca, I'm just going to tell you a bit about how we met. So we've worked out, we think it was 1997.
Yes.
Not giving away our age at all. And when I was living in Italy, and I walked into a gallery and met Bianca's now sister-in-law, who said, "Oh, I've got someone who would really like to practice her English," and that's how we got together. And since then, we've been firm friends. So, yeah, Bianca. So I'm just going to introduce you, and then I'll get you to sort of talk a little bit about what you do, your background, etc. So, Bianca, you're a psychologist and psychotherapist, and you work in the area of mental health, and you specialise particularly in the use of autobiography and the value of personal creation in treatment and recovery. So it sounds amazing, and I've seen some of the things you're doing. So do you want to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about your role as psychologist and psychotherapist?
Yes, I will speak with my poor English, but I think, I hope I am understandable. Yes, I started to work as a psychologist in psychiatry, in a mental health center. And I wanted to listen to the history of people. I was from the first moment very interested in knowing from themselves, direct from their voices, their history, because I noticed that psychiatry, which has a long history in Italy, it's a very important history in Italy of psychiatry, because we don't have mad houses anymore since 1978. But I noticed that people were not really listened. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
That there was a big power of psychiatrists in the sense that the patient were not listen anymore. And so I started in 2002, my first experience, just to interview them. I started with the more severe patients, and in particular with schizophrenic patients, which were considered severe and chronic. That means that they were ill since many years. And so I discovered that they were really interested in telling their histories. And in that moment in which we meet each other, they were always punctual, and they came every week to meet me. And I started to build with them, first singular, so one-to-one, and then on groups also, kind of workshop, which was called autobiographical workshop, because we really had the sensation to build together something, to really put together the lost pieces of their lives. and to have a real, how do you say, a real unification of the person. And then at the end, there were no feedback, there were no written feedback from me, but they had a book. So the end of this work was giving back a book like this, for example.
Fantastic.
This was one of the, and I noticed that this simple act to write together one's life had a really strong therapeutical effect. That people could really work about their self-esteem and to become like a protagonist.
Yeah, protagonist
Of his or her life. And this job goes on in my professional life till now. If I have a big library, biblioteca, library of people's life, and I see that it's really, I say, simple and but deep and really, I would say, existential work, because we live in a very chaotical period, in a very time nowadays, which people really lose the importance to be a person.
Yeah,
and
that's great. I think that journey, you know, you were saying often we're in the now and, you know, on social media, but, you know, looking back at your life and where it's brought you to now is really important, and not just with your clients. I think that's a piece that a lot of business people or business owners find really important, to understand, you know, how their experiences have brought them to the current day.
Yes, I wanted to tell you that I started with schizophrenic people because I started working in a mental health center, but then I applied the method also with everybody, with, for example, old people that wanted just to recover the memory of the family, for genealogical works of the family, for also in sometimes autobiographical approach is used also in the in the azienda.
Companies and organizations.
Companies also to work with people to create a group or to improve people consciousness about themselves. And the idea is that our past, like our present or our future, is something to be tellable.
To tell.
To tell. It's important to tell, to give a value. It's a very important work on value, and also to the courage to be. To be a person with a history, no? And that the idea is that every history earns romance. Romanzo.
Yeah.
Every history is a special romance to tell.
And I love that. You know, I love how you just
romance is a little novel to tell.
Yeah. So everyone's history is a book to talk about. Now. Exactly. And I think that's really important, because as I've been working more with business owners and entrepreneurs, they've all got very different histories. I mean, just my guests on my show, some of them have been, you know, in the army, police, you know, they've totally changed direction of where they're, you know, in their career, and it's actually added to their sort of personality and, you know, their expertise to be able to call upon those things from different parts of your history and your autobiography to, you know, what you're doing now and make an impact. So that's fantastic. So that's really good. So Bianca, what do you think for you is the biggest factor that has helped you be successful in where you are now in your career?
For me, I think I notice that success means for me to make things happen. It means to let, to project, to make things. The problem is when I stop, when I enter, I go in a routine. I don't feel myself successful when I do every day the same thing that make things not happen. So I noticed that the habits is always for me to be curious and not to fear to do also new things.
Yeah.
Also to approach also different areas or different, to match together different professionalities, for example. And I think it's very important also to practice the faculty of desire, to wish. And for me, success is something very linked to feelings, maybe because I am a woman. And I think that if I feel something which is a spark, which is, how do you say acceso?
Like light, something to sort of set a light. Yeah.
Yes, and I feel that something lights me.
Yeah.
Interests me very much, but from a very emotional point of view. I would say that maybe that most of the time when I felt myself really successful, when I was in love with the things I were doing, with the idea, and really, and yes, it's not, how do you say? It's really important, I think, for me to be linked with what I think. I feel. If I don't feel, I get bored, and I really, I'm not successful.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can explain.
No, you're perfect, very well. You explain it very well. And I think, you know, what's so nice about your research that you've done on the autobiography, and I know you've included theatre within that as well. It's really great to see that sort of you've been able to bring the creativity to the work, and that's benefiting your clients and it's benefiting you because it's something interesting and, you know, something that sets your heart alight, so you say. So that's it's really great to see. So you've mentioned a bit about habits. So what would you say your success habits are? So you've mentioned being creative, doing new things. Is there anything else that you do to ensure you sort of are successful?
You mean also practice?
Yeah.
Habits like what I do, what I do to be, I think I try, first of all, after sparking my feelings, not to be alone.
Yeah.
So to connect to people, to knowing new people, and sharing very much. I try to say it before, also with different professional characters. For example, in 2014, I had the idea to make a documentary about the history of the ancient madhouse of Florence, which is called San Salvi, because I noticed that it was really forgotten. And they wanted to build in this big area some apartments. But in this area, which was closed, as I say before, for me, it represented the memory of our history of Italy, our city, and so I thought to make a documentary, a movie.
Yeah.
I'm not a movie maker, so I was looking for a video maker, and then I'm not also historical, so I was looking also for people who worked with history, and so we put together, so with these other two person, and we make this documentary that I have here to show you. It means this is, and this project was really special also because we mixed together our different points of view, the artistical one, the historical one, the psychological one, and we go to meet people, to make interviews, and was very other very successful project. Because also in Florence we show the movie in many cinemas, and then we met people, we talk about together. So I think not being alone, it's one habit, I could say, and not being and also to practice to wake up, not to be in this annichilimento.
It's is it unbalanced?
Yes, unbalanced, and also to like in this period of COVID, at least you say, and now what?
Yes, lockdown. No? And then
lockdown, and now what? This period, I think, taught us not to block ourselves, to be always in movement. This is another habit. When I feel that I am too stopped, I try to move myself, and moving myself towards me and towards other people, and really it's like a gymnastic, interior, existential moving, I would say. But maybe you can help me to think about something more practical for habits, because as a psychologist, you know us, we are always in thinking and
I mean, I think that's great, working with people, not being alone. And I think particularly you've mentioned lockdown, a lot of people initially, there was the paralysis of, lockdown and
paralysis.
Business was maybe stopped, or clients had slowed down or stepped away. And I think, being creative is exactly what's needed at the moment. And, you talking about your projects that you've done in collaboration is, exactly what's needed at the moment. And in fact, that's what I was talking about this morning at an event. So that's great. So Bianca, if you could start it all over again, what would you do differently?
If I would start all over again. Beautiful question. Cosa farei di diverso? Maybe I would be a little more how do you say in English, Liz? Indiscreta, più sfacciata.
A bit more bold, a bit more indiscreet.
Yes, a little more direct. Yes, because I think that sometimes good education, it's okay, it's important to communicate to people, but sometimes I think that we are, for example, a little too scary to think my opinion.
Yeah.
And then after 5 years, I realized that I was right, but I didn't say that. No?
Yeah.
And I would be like a little more brave.
I think, yeah, I think brave's a really good word. And it's a conversation I have a lot with clients about that comfort zone of, you know,
Yeah.
the longer you stay in the comfort zone, it just, you know, it just sort of ends up squeezing you. And the more you step outside and another outside, then your comfort zone grows, but you still need to sort of find those things that make you feel a bit scared, because that's where you're going to grow. You know, those are the areas that you learn something new, you gain confidence. But it is scary. It can be tempting to stay within your comfort zone, definitely. So I think that's great. So Bianca, thinking about the advice that people have given you, what do you think is the best piece of advice that you've received about sparking success?
Once, when I lived in Berlin, I lived 1 year in Berlin, and I was always worried about my German, because I started to speak German there. And I wanted to make a speech, a public speech on student and professor, and I was really worried. And a friend of mine told me, a friend of mine, which now is my brother-in-law, but in that time was a friend of mine, told me, Bianca, be Italian. I was worried because I didn't, and this gave me really my mind. I am Italian. I speak how I speak. I mean, I don't have to be somebody or something which I don't have. I don't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can sound a little banal, but be yourself at the end. So this was one advice which I really appreciate, because I think it's really teeth. It's a teeth advice, not superficial.
Yeah.
Then a friend of mine, always friends.
Yeah, that's
good.
good.
No, because I give a great value to friendship.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So told me not to be to fear to try new things, or also in job. For example, now in Italy, you know, we have a big crisis and many people lost the job. And I see also among my patients that many young people, 20, 25, 30 years old, they reinvent themselves. A boy which was a barman came in my studio, in my practice, to change the filter in the conditioner. And he invented this job, but he was a barman, very bold barman, which was changing this filter in this period. And I think that we live in a period, in a historical period, which tells us lots about creativity and new word, a new way to think, to really to transform our mentality. This, I think it's the good new of this, all of this difficult period of COVID-19.
I think, you know, and I think you, like you said, I think in these difficult times, often the most creative solutions and ideas come out. So taking into consideration all that you've learned in your research on autobiography, what piece of advice can you give to business owners or those running big teams or companies from your research on autobiography?
What autobiography taught me is really what I said at the beginning of our conversation, is that every history is very special and particular. It's like a novel, I would say. And so I would say try to take from your life history the best, also in the worst chapters.
Yeah.
To take the best and to transform it, and because this lets you open your mind and to go out from this binary mentality. We are growing up in a binary mentality, or that, like that. Not, but I think now we are growing up in a different world where it's not good anymore, but we have and.
Yeah, I love
that. I can do this and this and then this. No,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's just fantastic. And I think, you know, that's a great thing for us to finish up on, because, you know, I'm a true believer in finding your own path, you know, following your passion. And that's something I'll be talking about in the next episode with my next guest, and not just feeling like you need to be pigeonholed into one thing. You can't, like you say, you can be a psychologist and an actor in the theatre, as you are, and you know, you can have and I just love that. I think that's a fantastic message. So have you got any final words for our audience before we finish?
I would say, first of all, I would say follow Spark Succeed, because I think it's really, I'm really enchanted.
Oh, enchanted.
Enchanted about your idea, Liz, to put different people together and to talk about making things succeed, to happen, to succeed. And I would say try not to lose good friends.
Yeah, no, that's
in general. So I really thank you for this opportunity, but also to remember people about these simple values that sometimes are really forgotten in this terrible middle age period of our time.
And I think, you know, like what you're saying is that autobiography, or, you know, journal, diary, you know, going back to that sort of simple just writing, rather than having to share just for you, you know, rather than sharing and everything that the social media world has sort of led us to. So that's been fantastic to have you. Before we go, I just wanted to share a photo that I haven't got one from Florence available, but this is us from, when did we say it was? 2009?
When I visit you in London. Yes, it was many years ago. No. I was a baby.
Yes, you were. We did a very London thing of going to Horse Guards Parade and see all the London sights. But
Wow.
it's been fantastic to have you on, because I've been following with interest your research on autobiography, and I think it's got a real relevance to the business community. So thank you so much for being part, Bianca.
Thank you, Liz. It was a pleasure.
And that's fantastic. So and we'll be, when all the borders open up, we'll be coming to see Florence in droves.
Yes, I think very soon. I think that they will open the borders.
Yeah, if you'll have us from the UK.
Yes, I would love, after 10 years.
Yes, yeah. So thank you so much. It's been really interesting. And I think for me, you were saying success isn't just one thing. You know, I think that's what this series, How to Spark Success, is showing, is that success means lots of things to lots of different people. And it's not always about just running a really, you know, financially successful business. It's about sort of following your passion. And that's just what I'm going to be talking about in the next episode. So I'm going to be joined by Philippa Wilkinson, who's got huge experience within the educational sector, but she'll be here to talk specifically about the importance of following your heart in your career, and, you know, making sure you're following that right path. So I'm really looking forward to speaking to her. But thanks so much, Bianca. It's been a pleasure to have you. And next time we do an interview, I'll do it in Italian.
Yes, I would love, so I can express myself better.
I'll have to get practice in.
Yeah, ma tu parli italiano, Liz.
Sì, sì, lo so.
Italiano.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest, and I look forward to interviewing you soon in Italian. So that's fantastic. So thank you.
Next time in Italian.
Next time. Okay, take care.
And thank